Hello, my name is Rod, and today I'm going to share with you my story and why you need to boldly put your health and wellness first, and why doing so is not a selfish act. 600,000 deaths every year in America. Now, you may be asking yourself, why? If you're in safety meetings here at ExxonMobil, some of the reasons potentially could be handrail safety. It could be those no lids on coffee cups. Pumpkin spice lattes are very dangerous. It could be walking and texting, or it could be going rogue in the parking garage, which would mean 1 mile over. But actually, it's none of those things. It's cancer. Now, despite cancer probably affecting almost everyone in this room, whether it's through a friend or family or even yourself, it really takes all the oxygen out of a room when you just bring it up. People don't want to talk about it. If you think about our society, whenever we respond when someone asks, "How are you?" and the only good response is good, fair, great, there's really just no room for cancer. And this is something that isn't easy for me to discuss, but I think it's an important discussion for us to have. So let me make it easier on you and make cancer pink. So much more friendly, much less scary, so we can discuss it. But cancer affected my family. It tested my family, it strengthened my family, and it hurt my family. But again, while this is a hard thing for me to discuss, again, I am coming from this from a point of love for you. And the reason for that is there was a significant amount of love shown to me from this company, from my colleagues, from my boss, when I told them what was going on in my life. And it was the kindness that people showed to me in that time when I needed them most, which is why then I share this story with you, this story out of love for you. So let's start at the beginning. Picture it. 1977, Iran, a cute Persian couple decides to make a better life for themselves in America. Now, the only place to start a better life in America is Miami, Florida. Beautiful ocean, beautiful palm trees. But unfortunately, once they came to America for about 2 weeks, they were staying in New York with a friend. The friend's looking at all their paperwork, and they're like, "You're not going to Miami, Florida." And they're like, "There's only one Miami that's world renowned." But instead, it was Miami, Oklahoma, pronounced Miami, Oklahoma. My dad affectionately referred to it. He's like, "I had never seen a village before until I came to America." So, needless to say, we started a great family in Oklahoma. I want you to meet the Jahromis. Myself, my mom, my sister, and my dad. This was one of our trips in Seattle just a few years ago, and one of my favorite times of us all together. Now, my family is great. They are lovable. We have the crazy uncle. We have, all of those things that any other family has. But if there's one complaint I could register about my family, is that they love me too much. It's that exhausting, sticky, kind of too much into everything that you're doing type of love. But it's love nonetheless. I know for myself, whenever I fly back to Houston, my parents always mention, make sure you give us a call once you get home. And I'm like, I'm a 31-year-old manager at ExxonMobil. I don't need to call you. And they're like, well, my dad will always say, well, you could be 100 years old, but you're still my child. So, but this story isn't about my whole family. This story in particular is about me and my mom. My mom was someone who I was really close and am really close with. You can tell that by our neon fashion trends. We have the same type of brain in the early 90s. And with any parent or sibling or loved one, you're not allowed to love one more than the other, but you can like them differently. And I just really like my mom. One of those things that I like so much about my mom is she just always impressed me. So I remember as a kid when my friends would come home with me, I'd always want to introduce them to her, just because I was like, by extension, I'm great too. If my mom is great. This is one of my favorite photos with my mom for two reasons. One is this was at a destination wedding that we went to a few years ago, and my mom mentioned before we take the picture, she's like, "Can you believe that we both are sitting in this hammock together? I used to be much, much heavier," and she's like, "I just can't believe we both can fit in it." And I was like, "Thanks, Mom." So the years of therapy that I will need based on that, but it was always out of love, her pushing comments in regards to me. But what I also loved about this picture is afterwards we spent over an hour in the hammock, basically complaining about my sister and my dad, because there's nothing that makes you happier and brings people closer than complaining about other loved ones. So that is something that we shared together as a family and together as a mom and a son. So I mentioned to you that my mom and I are very close. We really really had no secrets between one another. But the summer of 2011, there was a secret that my mom was keeping. My mom would realize that she felt that she may have a lump in one of her breasts, and instead of mentioning anything to anyone, and again, the whole family is extremely close, she never mentions anything. Weeks go by, months go by, and my mom still mentions nothing. And slowly but surely, she notices that it's getting slightly larger. Now, she thought to herself, well, if it doesn't cause any pain, then everything's okay. If we read into scientific literature, oftentimes cancerous tumors don't cause any pain. In fact, those are often cysts. But she didn't ask, she didn't seek out any information. She went to a friend and said, "Hey, after 6 months, I think there's something that is wrong." And the friend helped set up the appointments. They went for the visit. And then ultimately, after a few other tests, we found out that it was stage 3 breast cancer. And that was when our whole family kind of got brought into the situation. And that was the reason why she had delayed mentioning anything. She thought she was okay, but she was not okay. So now you may be asking yourself, but if you're smart, if you're educated, if you know better, why would you not go see a doctor? That is an obvious question to ask, but there is a lot of scientific research that has gone into why smart people do not do that. So let's go into a few of those reasons. One is simply fear. You need to think about the fact that the only time we usually visit the hospital and there's only a good outcome is usually when a baby is involved. Every other interaction, there's a component of it where you just don't know what's going to happen. That causes an anxiety that then stops people from wanting to go visit the doctor. There's also time. There may be over 84,000 hours in a year, but the 2 hours to prioritize yourself and make that time is not available. I know for myself, I had a pituitary tumor that's located just in my brain cavity or somewhere in my head. And I knew that I needed to get it looked at regularly. And at a certain point, my doctor said it only needs to get an MRI scan every 5 years. And then there was a point that I realized just a couple years ago that the last appointment wasn't but 8 years ago. And I was like, wow, I really didn't make time for years for something that I know is important. We're very fortunate here at ExxonMobil. We have insurance. We all mostly have well-paying jobs. A lot of Americans don't have that benefit. And so a lot of times you can go to the doctor's office and not actually realize, can I even make these bills? Am I going to be even able to handle what I'm going to have to do based on this issue? There's also a bit of disappointment that goes into not going, confusion. ExxonMobil has a bunch of smart people, lots of engineers, and all sorts of other disciplines, but we don't speak doctor speak. And so sometimes just going into an environment where you don't feel like you're an expert is a thing we don't enjoy doing. Prioritization, again, I've had a colleague mention to me, they're like, well, I'm going to push that appointment back because I know we have this workshop, or I'm going to do this because of that. Just think about what your colleagues would think if something that could potentially help save your life or make you just feel a little bit better because of a cold or something, that you've prioritized work over that. Then a little bit of hopelessness. What do I do with this information when it comes to me? This is the one my dad has, feeling invincible. You're like, I'm perfect. Nothing will ever happen to me. So I don't need to go see a doctor. And then finally, while this wasn't in the research, being a mom. Now, what do I mean by that? Being a mom is that person who always takes all of everyone else's problems and brings it into themselves and then never focuses on themselves. They never push their problems onto other people. Now, while all moms have this quality, you don't have to be a mom to have this. We all have that person that is in our life that just takes on other people's problems, that is that rock for a family, for a friend group. But being a mom, while it is so wonderful and selfless and kind, it goes back to the thought process of when you're on a plane and they say, put the mask on yourself first because you can't help other people, this is exactly why you need to take care of yourself. So, what happened? Throughout 2012, we battled hard stage 3 breast cancer. Very aggressive procedures, chemo, radiation, double mastectomy. And with family and friends by my mom's side, we were able to pull through. My mom was able to get better. It was not an easy thing, and it is a pain that I don't want anyone to have to burden. But things were good. If you see this picture, this was from 2014. This was from my graduation of my MBA program. And I remember thinking just how happy I was that day because my mom's hair had grown back, something that's not that important, but it's one of those things where you feel normal again when you start to see someone exactly how they were. My mom, full of life, energy, wonderful, and we as a family basically said, well, we've cured cancer. And while we went to all the follow-up appointments, we made sure that the medication that was needed was always taken. We really let cancer be out of our lives. We were normal, and normal feels really great. The one challenge with normal is the fact that if you look at scientific evidence, says that people that have faced pretty severe medical challenges, they become even more fearful of going to a doctor. They become even more reluctant to get additional care because they know how bad can look like. So the exact people that need it the most have fear. So we'd had that great graduation just a few days before Christmas. Then I went back to Oklahoma to spend time with my mom. And my mom, an avid Facebook junkie, writes me this post. I'm sorry the last few times you visited us, I have been sick. I'm sorry you've had to take me to the doctor, get my meds, and rent movies with me. You've had to take care of me instead of me taking care of you. I already miss you. A lot of exclamation points. Have a safe trip. Love you. Kiss, kiss, kiss. Mom. And my mom, even in this state where we just thought that she had the flu, was always caring about the burden she put on to me, a woman who had already gone through so much and had lived through a life so selflessly, was still concerned about that. Let's look at some data. Breast cancer patient survival rates after 10 years. Now, if you catch cancer early, if you're listening to your body, if you're paying attention, if you're going for your follow-up visits, then hopefully we can catch it early. If we do catch it early at a stage 0 or stage 1, your survival rates after 10 years is exceptionally high. But unfortunately, if you delay things, if you're not able to catch it early, then stage 2 through stage 4, the survival rates continue to decline. So early detection is absolutely key. Now, I know what people may be thinking, well, prevention is really important. Absolutely, it's really important. My mom would always walk or jog 5 miles a day, ate so many pomegranates that, she basically had that type of medicine always for her, drank green tea, did all the right things. But early detection is still important. It's what changes the different treatment options you have. It changes survival rate statuses. It changes everything. So, what happened? My mom would get diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. It would take another month and a half after Christmas for us to actually find out that. This is now in 2015. And so let me walk you through what happened then. The first thing is when you hear that your mom has stage 4 breast cancer, you have to make decisions in life. And I remember going to my boss and telling her, I want to spend time with my mom, and I don't care, frankly, of all the other options that I need for work or this, that, and the other. I just need to make it happen. And to her credit, she never made me feel guilty about it. And all my coworkers and my friends and all those other people that were in my life, when they said, is there anything I can do for you? They meant it. And they did. So as months went by, I spent this great time with my mom in Oklahoma. We went to the botanical gardens. We went to so many fun things. I got to make breakfast for the person that always makes me breakfast. I was able to do that every single day. I was also able to then have conference calls in between, then go back for lunch, and just spend the best time that anyone can have with their mom. We also then had MD Anderson treatments, and we came back and forth to Houston. We did everything we possibly can to make sure that we would have the best and hopeful outcome. And I would definitely say there were days where I felt that hope. But as time progressed, things started to change. And the person that I loved so much would begin to have lose physical strength, lose their emotional strength. And then as the cancer started to progress from the breast to the bone to other body organs, and then finally into the brain, the worst thing happened, is losing your mental strength. I remember there was a recipe that my mom would always make me that I loved so much, and I always waited to get what the recipe was. And then finally reached a point where when I asked, we could always get the first 5 ingredients, but we never could actually finish. That pain that one feels seeing someone you love diminish, go from that 100% to 80% and further down, is something that I don't wish on anyone in this room. My mom would eventually lose her battle with cancer in that same year, just a few days after Christmas. And I was mixed with a lot of emotions at that time, anger and sadness, and thinking about, as a 29-year-old, all the opportunities that I deserved to have my mom with, whether it was a wedding, whether to see kids, all of those things. But my mom's pain and the pain that my family went through leads us to one thing for you today. And I ask you, what will you do today? What will you do now that you know that you just need to care about yourself, care about your body, put yourself first? What will you do today? Will you make that doctor's appointment? Will you push that family member that you know hasn't gone to the doctor in several years? Will you say, hey, let me help you. I am there for you. When you have a colleague or a friend that you know has things that are going on and you say, anything I can do for you to help, will you make sure they know it? I just ask you, what will you do today? I'd like to thank you all. I'd like to thank my dad for all of his love and support. And I'd like to thank my mom. Thank you all. Thank you.